Today at 10 a.m., Dan Muse is going to meet with reporters at PPG Paints Arena. It'll be his introductory press conference, and it'll be the first chance to ask him questions about anything. But also, one question that I'm going to ask that I can pretty much take to the bank won't get answered. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Muse has been an assistant coach for enough years now that it would be easy to kind of lose one's sense of head coaching identity. In other words, if you have to go back to the minor leagues or to the junior leagues to remember where you planted a flag on what kind of a head coach you are, then you're probably really, truly going to be starting from scratch at this level. And when I say that, I'm principally referring to systems. I'm referring to methodologies, parts of what it is that you believe in, that you see as a foundation to who you are as a head coach, to who your team is that you're coaching. There's one problem with all of this, and that's that no coach wants to answer this, and this coach won't either. I promise you he won't. Why? Well, let's rewind to Muse's predecessor. Mike Sullivan really did not like being asked about his system, partly because he felt that he was being labeled, and unfairly so, as being intransigent. He was just too set in his ways. He would never adjust. What was the hot common topic in 2018? Oh, yeah, Barry Trotz brutally outcoached him because Trotz figured out how to take advantage of the Penguins pinching along the boards, and it would spring the Capitals for countless breakaways and 2-on-1s and everything else. Never mind if there's an element of truth to that or not. Okay, and there is some. But that was really, I got in a sense from having covered his entire tenure, that was the one that kind of set him off a little bit as related to talking about systems. And that would also get him to talking about changes that he'd made, subtle changes, but changes. And he would pull me off to the side every once in a while. He'd see something that I'd write or say or whatever. And he would be, you're saying all the time, we never change, we're stubborn, but here's this thing that we're doing now. And we didn't do that before. And it would be a change. But the rock of what the Penguins aimed to do in all those years under Sullivan did not waver at all. And there'll never be a more powerful example of that than just this past season, when the team opened up with some of the worst defending we'd seen in franchise history, worse than pre-Mario stuff. And Sullivan still would not adapt to that, at least not schematically. Everything was hunkered down, just do it right and it'll be fine. To an extent, he'd be right about that, but to an extent, he also was wrong, as I both wrote and spoke at the time. So what does a Muse system look like? What players do you want to add to a Muse system? Do you want speed? Do you want aggressiveness? Do you want to think attack first? Do you want to think defend first? I could try this one today a dozen different ways, and I'm not going to get anything. And the reason I know that is that I could try it a zillion times with a zillion different hockey coaches and not get that. Coaches, especially the smarter ones, and there's no doubt Sullivan fits that category, don't like to be labeled as having a certain way about doing things because it takes away from them the label that they coach the players that they have, not the players that they wish they had. So yeah, I am expecting Muse to say, hey, listen, I'm going to look at the players who are here. I'm going to look at what it is that they like to do. We're going to talk to them. And again, there's going to be something in there that's true. There's going to be an element of that that's true. But there's going to be something at the very bottom of all that. There's going to be a foundation to it. We're not going to know that for quite a while when it comes to this coach. At least not until we see the first time he spazzes out on the bench over Erik Karlsson pinching. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Josh. It's in response to the unusual episode I had yesterday, led by just a long pining for Eetu Luostarinen, or a clone of his, to come to Pittsburgh. Josh says, DK, people within the Florida organization clearly had to overlook Luostarinen's offensive shortcomings at the AHL level and still believe in him. I feel like there are probably many Luostarinens in the AHL right now who don't get their fair shots, or they don't get the right usage when called up. Can you think of anybody within the Penguins organization over the last 5 or so years, or even current AHL players, who you think might have fallen through the cracks for similar reasons? You know, it's funny, Josh, in doing yesterday's show, and if anybody's new here, I don't script these things. I turn the mic on and go. Even as I was talking about Luostarinen, the one name that went through my head as someone who might possibly, conceivably have been overlooked in this regard, and don't bite my head off for this one, okay, is Sam Poulin. And I say this in the most positive possible context. When I criticize Sam for his work at the NHL level, almost always I'm repeating that I don't know exactly what he is or what he's supposed to be. Now, that can sound, mean. I don't believe that it is. I believe that at times a younger player does not have their identity fully formed until they get to the top level, until they see where they slot on an NHL line chart or depth chart. What do we know about Sam? We know that he can skate. We know that he's got size. We know that he's physical. And we know that there's enough talent there that he can make plays. From a development standpoint, Sam is a little bit of a curiosity, because when he goes back to the minors, he's put into a top 6 role. He's on the power play and everything else. But when he came up to Pittsburgh, he was like this, put on the 4th line. Now, to watch Sam in the NHL, you say, okay, yeah, that's a 4th liner, has to be a 4th liner, or a 3rd liner at the most. But is he? Do we know that? I'm not going to pretend to be some detailed historian on Luostarinen and everything that happened to him, from when Carolina made him a 2nd-round pick to the time that the Hurricanes clearly misjudged who he could be in making him a throw-in. The trade where the Panthers sent Vinny Trocheck from Sunrise up to Raleigh. But I do feel really comfortable saying that Luostarinen became who he is once he was inside that broader dynamic that the Panthers have. Not just structurally, not just, he's on the 3rd line and that's where he fits. It's the whole championship concept, the Paul Maurice wear those guys down concept. Is Sam that guy? Does he have a chance to be that guy? I ask a lot of questions about hockey. I've lived my life around hockey, but I don't ever come at you pretending that I have all the answers. And I don't have any answers when it comes to Sam, and it kind of drives me nuts. But I am so glad you asked this one today, because it really did flash through my head in doing yesterday's show. Something to think about as we get closer to actual training camp. I appreciate you and everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Penguins, Josh. And of course, we will have an episode that's focused on the new head coach and what he actually does say later this morning, come tomorrow morning.